passive income coming in. We're going to talk about some tax components if you like to get rid of some of the tax that you have to pay. We're also going to be talking about how you can get passive streams of income coming in. You can get into real estate without having to deal with tenants, toilets, and all that kind of stuff. And I'm joined by a friend, an investor who's really been through it all. This man has so much experience, so much wisdom to offer. He's one of my heroes. I used to joke with him. There was that book about 25, maybe 30 years ago called Tuesdays with Morrie. Ron, I don't know if you remember that one or not, but I'll pull you up in a second on this. But when I used to work in Minnesota, I would have tea with the man that I'm going to introduce in a bit here, and he was my Tuesdays with Morrie investor, and I got to learn a lot about life and a lot about business from him. And today he's going to come and share. He's going to share what he's done to take his successful small business and parlay it into passive streams of income for him and his family. And he's done it all. He's done the active side and the passive side. So you're going to be able to go into his brain and get decades of experience pulled out so that you can take something away for you and for your family. So as we jump into this, just know that this is a live stream. If you're catching it live, you can use the chat section. If you're following us on social media, then go ahead and type in the comments. Let me know what city you're tuning in from, and if you currently have real estate or not. Just put a yes if you currently have real estate. Our team is watching all the social platforms. If you happen to be in the Zoom room with us as well, you can put it in the chat room in the Zoom room. But those of you that are online will be watching that as well. If you have a question as we go, feel free to type in the comments as well. We're going to take as many as we possibly can today. We want to make sure that everybody that has questions, that wants to get inside of Ron's brain, gets those questions answered. We've got a lot to go through. We'll be going through the 10 ways to build wealth for small and medium-sized business owners. We are a real estate company, so naturally we're going to take a real estate angle to this, but there's a lot of different ways. It doesn't just have to be one. It's not just you trying to be a landlord all on your own. We'll be going through all 10 of them. So welcome to Home Invest. My name is Nate Armstrong. I get to be the MC and host today. We are a faith-forward real estate investment firm. So we've got this tagline. It says, believe in more. And for us, it's not only we expect you to believe in more for your returns, for your passive income when you trust us to steward your capital, but it's also a corporate call for us to do more with the profits. You see, we have the privilege to have a nonprofit. We have the privilege to help people in a positive way. And so believe in more for us is not just about hitting the profit marks, which we do, but in addition to that, it's about making a positive impact in the world. So if you believe it's possible to have more out of your investments and do more with your money for the good of the world, then you're in the right spot. All right, so here's the rundown, okay? So today's agenda, we're going to cover basically some things that you might think are fancy lingo terms for investment. We're going to demystify those. We're going to make sure that you understand what your options are, okay? I'm going to do a quick intro on myself. Then I'm going to bring Ron up, and we're going to be able to start dissecting through the 10 different ways that you can passively invest in real estate. And then we're going to be going through questions. So whatever questions are on your mind or your heart, we're going to be able to go through and answer with you today. So I'll start with my intro. So I am co-CEO here. I started in this industry back in 2007. I had the brilliant opportunity to have a lot of mentors in my path. But before I got smart with mentors, I co-signed a monster development deal. That monster development deal, the developer walked on it, and it took me to my knees, financially speaking. I literally had to go through bankruptcy. Now, I worked hard. I got the project finished regardless. I did the right thing with everybody that was involved, but it drained me personally, financially. And after the end of that, I got really hands-on in this business. I wasn't leaving anything to chance. I wasn't co-signing for random people. Like, I decided to go all in. And since then, not only have we had the blessing and privilege of coming back with really good force on our financial side, but also we won some awards. We won the Inc. 500 award. We won the 2 Comma Club award. We've done a lot of really cool things. But most nearest and dearest to my heart is that we got to start the nonprofit and start making an impact in the world in a positive way. Now we've done over $110 million worth of real estate. We've got 50 million plus in assets under management that we get the privilege of caring for. And our purpose today is just to share openly. We're going to educate, we're going to teach, we're going to show you what we're doing, what's working, and then we get to do the same thing with our guest, Dr. Ron Mash, in a minute. Before I pull him up, know this. 32% of wealthy Americans right now use real estate as their investment vehicle to generate additional wealth. 32%. And although that number seems big, it's not nearly enough. And we're here to help fill the awareness gap. We're going to teach what we've shown other small and medium-sized business owners to help get to that spot. Okay. We have been small business owners ourselves. So we operate in that space. We know it really, really well. Here's the 10 things we hear most often on why people get hung up. So when I start asking Ron questions in a little bit, I'm going to be going through some of these, but if any of these stand out to you, please put it in the comment section for us. I'll spend some extra time on it, but why don't people jump into real estate? What holds you back as a small business owner from actually taking the plunge and getting into real estate investing? Is it lack of awareness? You just don't have the information, or you haven't seen the right opportunity? Is it a time constraint? Is it the fear of losing risk? I know that was a big one for me when I was a corporate employee 20 years ago. I didn't want to lose at all. Is it fears of inconsistent cash flow? Worrying about maybe the renter not paying? Is it finding trusted advisors? Is it worrying about the laws in the city that Ron operates some of his rentals in? They've changed the laws a lot in the last decade. St. Paul, Minnesota, they literally started putting in rent controls like you see in New York and California. Is it diversification dilemmas? You don't know if you want Bitcoin, if you want stock market, or if you want real estate. We'll talk about that. Is it aligning investments with your business goals? Is it measuring the performance? Or is maybe there is an emotional attachment? Right now, we're looking at a deal in Naples, Florida. And I've trained myself a long time ago to not get emotional about properties. No way. But I got to tell you, I'm on the edge emotionally for this one. It's Naples, Florida. It's a beautiful asset. It's like everything that we want as a company, but we're having to stay disciplined with the numbers. So all of these and more we're going to cover, and whatever is on your heart for questions, we'll go through that as well. Cool. I'm going to introduce Mr. Ron Mash. Dr. Mash, are you ready? We got you?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Hello. Hi.
All right. If we can spotlight Dr. Mash too. So number one, I'm going to call you Dr. Mash formally because I think that you're owed that respect in life for everything you've accomplished. But if you want us to refer to you as Ron, you're welcome, whatever you're comfortable. Where do you want to start there?
Let's go with Ron.
Okay. So we're going to go with Ron today. So Ron, you got into this whole journey of real estate investing after being a successful business owner operator. Can we step back in time? A lot of people are on the path of building their business right now, or maybe they've got a successful business. Before you became in that spot, tell us about Ron. Let's go back in time.
Okay, so I was a chiropractor and acupuncturist, and I had my own practice for, 35 years until I retired. And about in 2007 or 8, I realized I was going to retire down the road. And I wanted to have, besides what I built up, I wanted to have income, steady income from real estate, and have several relatives who've made, I'm not exaggerating, made billions in real estate. And so I wasn't looking to achieve that, but I was looking to have, a steady amount of money coming in every month without having to adjust spines. And so, and that's where that led me. And then, honestly, I met Nate around that time, and that was 2007 or 8. That's when the housing market was in bad shape, lots of foreclosures. So we took a bad condition nationally, but used it in our favor. So bought, about 30 or 35 houses and duplexes over a few year period of time.
Ron, you mentioned family members that have done well in this business. That from our conversations, I believe most of them are in larger commercial assets, multifamily specifically, and maybe office space. Is that
Right.
accurate?
Yeah, they are. But I was.
Why not go that path? What made you steer and go to a different path?
Well, I knew I wouldn't be that big, and I didn't want to have all my eggs in one basket. So if I had an apartment building or complex for 30, and then all of a sudden, a crisis showed up, it hits everything. So I figured, spread the risk. So that's why I bought, you know, 25, 35 units, and then I got management, so I didn't have to deal with the headaches, or most of the headaches.
Ron, I'm going to go back in time even a little bit more because I just want people to get an understanding of the risk that some people perceive real estate investing to be. You have family, you have wife, kids, grandkids. Like, did any of those players in your life come into your mind as you were taking money that you've worked hard to earn and put it towards a new venture?
Well, for me, no, because I just knew historically that real estate's done well, and I did the math. I'd buy and again, I was buying at a good time, but I was buying properties, and the numbers worked. And then I don't remember honestly if it was you, Nate, or someone else said to me, before you're buying a place and you're looking at the numbers, look at the numbers as if you're making 9 months of income and 3 months no income. And if it works at 9 months, then go for it. And that was my premise always. I didn't have pie in the sky that there wouldn't be a need for a new refrigerator or furnace or whatever. So I calculated 3 months of no income, and that was my energy. But I didn't. Plus, I didn't put all my eggs in one basket. I didn't see it as a big risk. I never did.
Wow. Okay. So you basically defined this with logic. You said, I'm going to do the numbers. If I can survive with the income off of 70%, 9 months or so, then I'm good. Pull the trigger and move forward.
Correct. Yep.
Cool. What would you say to the person that maybe they don't have quite that confidence developed yet, but they're sitting on the edge of the fence? They've got some capital to deploy, but they're still thinking about their business and their family. What would you say to them as they're sitting on capital right now?
Well, I think a lot depends on their personal circumstances and their age and their risk tolerance. So my attitude is, for those who are listening, probably have income from a business. And what are you doing with your money? You either could put it in the bank and earn zero, or you could put it into the stock market. And one of the reasons I got into real estate is because I go to the gym almost every day, and they have big TVs in front of your face, and one of them always has how the stock market is. And I didn't like watching one day it'd be down 600, next day it'd be up 300. I didn't like the roller coaster, and I didn't feel that I felt like someone else who I don't know is putting money into some stocks that I probably don't even know what the stocks are. And I was, it was like a person who diets. They get on the scale in the morning. If they lost 2 pounds, they're happy. If they gained 2 pounds, they're not. And that's how I felt with the stock market.
Up and down, up and down.
Yeah.
Ron, I want to move over to something that you said to me earlier, and Paige did a call with us, and she started to try to pull out the top 5 lessons. I'm going to ask about this management one in a second, but first, before you move to more of the passive real estate investments, you were obviously buying units that you took care of, you managed. What was it that you said to tenants when you wanted to tell them what you looked like?
Oh.
Maybe you can tell that one from the beginning.
Okay, so in the very beginning, I did everything, and back in 2007 or so, we didn't use the internet. We used Craigslist or whatever to run ads, and then I would have a person call and ask about it, and I took it again, did everything, and it was always, I would say, 99% the women who did the calling. So I would say, well, I'll meet you at the property. Tell me what you look like. And they would tell me what they look like. And then I'd say, I want you to know what I look like. And then I'd say, do you know what George Clooney looks like? And they would get so excited and go, yeah. I go, well, I don't look anything like him. And then just to loosen things up, and then I would tell them what I look like, and then we'd go from there. But it was, I mean, I could stay on the phone for hours. I mean, I remember the first time I had to meet a person, um, and she actually said she wanted the place and not even seen it. And I said, okay, I'll meet you at the bank so you can give me a deposit. Well, I met her at the bank, and like every part of her face and body was tattooed, and she had like about 8 colors in her hair. I thought, oh my God, what am I going to do? But I rented to her. She actually ended up being a good tenant. Um, but that's, that was the early stages of dealing with it. Now, uh, thankfully, 98% of the tenants don't know me.
Let's dig into that. So now you've transitioned to anything that you're doing new. I believe most of it is more passive stuff for you. You're hiring either
Correct.
managers or getting involved in syndications. So
So,
for the
yeah,
folk,
go on.
yeah, you go ahead.
No, I was going to say I haven't bought a new property well, I bought one last year, but I haven't really bought properties. I have a buy and hold mentality, but I've had them 15 years. They're not in the best neighborhoods. Things are starting to fall apart, furnaces, roofs, um, etc. And then I just decided um, I wanted to be super passive and give it to, like give it to you and others to invest in properties that I don't have anything to do with except give you a check and get monthly or quarterly checks. And um, that's kind of where the stage I'm at now. So that's where I'm gradually selling off some of these properties, and I'm using that to go into, you know, and as I'll call it, group investing, group group funds.
Cool. That's actually number two on our list. So real estate syndications, you put it in nice simple terms as a group investment. What in your mind does that look like when you're looking for a good group investment or a good syndication to get involved with? What are your triggers? What are you going to look for?
Well, my triggers are first and foremost to to know who I'm putting my money with, because um, for those of you who are old enough, you might remember Peter Lynch with investing, and so people thought he was a guru, and so they gave it to him. So I like to go with people who are knowledgeable, experienced, and trustworthy. And that's my go-to. And may not be politically correct. I only invest in Republican red states because they're just, I'm in Minnesota, and they like to come up with new laws by the whenever they feel like it, and landlords here are not treated positively, but in conservative states they are.
I fully agree with you. If you look at New York, they've passed more rent control than any other state. California is second behind them. But when Minnesota started going after rent control, I knew that was it. No more. Because what it's doing is it's taking guys like you, Ron, who are providing housing and saying, hey, even if you put 30 grand worth of improvements into this property, we're going to cap the amount that you can charge for rent. So
Right.
therefore, you don't want to upgrade, nor do you want to provide housing. So it's actually defeating the original purpose that they kind of lobbied on, get the
Yeah,
landlords to do more.
you need areas, and Republican states are that way. Red states are, they're investor friendly.
Mhm.
And why not go where you're wanted? In
Yeah.
Minnesota, landlords are the bad people.
You mentioned trust on how you pick where you're going to syndicate. How do you figure out trust? Somebody that's new thinking about getting into real estate, they're looking at a syndication deal or a group deal. How do you vet? How do you know they're trustworthy?
Well, for me, it's a little different because I've gone with you and one other, and the reason I go with more than one is I don't put all my eggs in one basket. It's always my go-to policy. And then the other one I went with, one of my relatives has invested with them for about 10 or 15 years and couldn't sing highly enough about them. And so I went with them. So I think to know a person, but let's say you don't know anybody, um, I, I would say start smaller and invest with people who you read about or talk to, and go with your gut if you trust your own gut.
That's good advice. We've had the blessing of working together now, Ron, for 14, maybe 15 years. And we're not perfect by any means, but I think the one thing that we've always appreciated back and forth is we're both just candid. If we make a mistake, we own up to it and tell you, and we fix it, make it right. And then you're the same way on your side. If you feel like something's not the way that you want it, you're always one to voice your opinion, which is not like a typical Minnesotan.
Well, because I'm from New Jersey originally, but the fact is that all of my houses and duplexes I bought through Nate. I mean, it's the only one. Most of them I've never seen. I bought in Milwaukee, Missouri, and Minnesota, and I think we've done about 35 or 40 deals. And I would say I was thinking of this driving home from the gym today, and two of them have gone south. And what I mean by that, one of them I broke even, and I considered that going south. And the other one, I did lose some, but I also know that if I look at I get my monthly statements from, I have two big brokerage houses, and I hope this doesn't come off wrong, but I look at the statements. I don't look at my investments. I don't pay attention to the investments because I know they'll go up and they'll go down. But last month, one of my companies I work with, the net value was down 80 grand in 1 month. Well, to me, it's like it's monopoly money. It's on paper. I don't really look at it, and I'm not panicked because next month it might go up 80 grand. I laugh, and probably a lot of people have seen that Bitcoin commercial that used to be on that guy would go, "I'm a millionaire," and then 15 seconds later he's looking at his phone. He goes, "I'm not a millionaire." It was a great commercial. And so, I don't get Bitcoin, so I don't do Bitcoin. But yeah, you just and I mentioned to you before, Nate. The one thing that's good about my properties, I don't care if they go up or down in value. I just care about the income from the properties. And so if it goes up 10 grand, or, according to some site that thinks it's worth more or less, it really means nothing to me until I'm ready to sell. And I don't have to sell in a bad market.
That's an interesting take. So some people might panic if they get into an investment and then all of a sudden Zillow says it's worth less, but you're looking at straight up income. How do you stomach that? How do you just let that not phase you?
Because it's irrelevant unless I'm selling. So I'll give you a better example. So where I live, the houses are probably valued 800, well, probably less, 600 to 1.2 million, maybe 1.2 on the high end. Well, a guy bought the house directly across the street from me, tore it down, building a big mansion, and it's going to be about 2.5 million. So everybody says to me, "Wow, aren't you glad your property value is going to go up now?" I said, "No, it doesn't matter to me. In fact, I don't want it to go up now because they're just going to tax me more. So it only matters when I'm ready to sell. But I have some control, so I could do what I want. And that's the biggest thing with real estate. There is some control. The stock market is, I know people who look at the stocks first thing in the morning. And again, it's going to be like getting on a scale first thing in the morning. You're going to be in a good mood or a bad mood, depending on what some gurus in New York decided that the stock should go up or down today. And to me, that was much more panic because that was more real. And with the housing, I'm being redundant here, but with the housing, I don't know why anyone would want to pay attention to what the market is doing unless they're looking to get out. That's the only time it matters.
That's great perspective. I just pulled up multifamily values for the last 20 years or so, and 25 years, and they've dipped twice. They dipped in the big recession, 2009, 2010 era, and then they dipped in 2023. And then that dip carried over in 2024. Right now, we're in the dip for multifamily. I can't speak to single family yet. I have some general comments, but for multifamily, we're still in the dip and we're climbing out of the dip. The reason for the dip, it's a little bit different than reasons for single family. Multifamily is driven a lot by the interest rate. When the Federal Reserve raised interest rates and made it more expensive to borrow money, prices had to come down. Sellers couldn't trade or sell at the same level that they were when interest rates were low. And so now we're seeing prices driven down on a lot of real estate. That tacked on with insurance rates going up and things like that. So there's a big REIT, publicly traded REIT. They're buying up a lot of Texas and a lot of Florida right now. And their forecast is that we've got about 18 months left to buy below the cost to replace a building right now. And it's caused by all of this. And then their theory is that it's going to lift again, where prices will be back up to where they used to be. So with that said, Ron, most of what we're doing here at HomeInvest is multifamily, and then we do some industrial. We're not really in the single family market. Are you feeling the single family housing market shift at all in Minnesota where your holdings are? Is it coming down, staying flat? How are you feeling?
No, well, it's definitely tougher. But again, I'm not in the buying or selling mode. But what I know, because I pay somewhat attention to it, is that so I sold 2 properties a few months ago, and one of them I sold within a couple of days. But the other one, it took 6 months and a lot of rehab and a lot of headaches. And so, one of the things I mentioned before is I'm at the point I'm not interested in the headaches anymore. So, for example, whatever you're buying and selling and doing behind the scenes, I think of it as going to a nice restaurant. They bring out a nice food, and it's served well and it tastes good. But who the hell knows what was going on in the kitchen while they were making it, and the craziness of the kitchen. And that's you have, and I'm saying generically, you have to deal with the highs, the lows, the maintenance, all the headaches that I don't hear about. And I'll just tell a brief story, if you don't mind. But when the, excuse my French, shit hit the fan with George Floyd in Minneapolis area. So I live about 15 minutes from there, but I have a cabin 2 hours away, and we have no electronics, no TV, no computer. We didn't have we had cell phones, but we didn't look at the computer. And my aunt from Florida called me up and said, "How are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm fine. How are you?" And she said, "Well, you live 10 minutes from Minneapolis, right?" And I said, "Sure." She goes, "Well, don't you know what's going on there?" I said, "I have no idea." So the whole world knew about George Floyd and the riots, and we were 2 hours away, and she told us about it. So I said, "Okay, thank you." And we hung up, and I looked at my wife and said, "I guess we'll stay up here another week or two." So that's the same thing as buying from you. I don't want to know. I don't know. I have no interest in knowing about the headaches. I just want to know my check coming when it's supposed to come, and it does. So
I love this. I love this perspective. I think I want to go to your cabin, Ron. No electronics, just unplug.
Yeah,
Hey,
you're
Ron,
welcome.
I'm planning on it this summer. I'd like to come by for at least a day or two and come say hi to you and Linda.
Yeah.
Ron, is it cool if I open this up for questions? I see Cody raise his hand,
Sure.
and there might be.
Yeah.
So here it is, guys. Once in a lifetime opportunity. Learn from Dr. Mash, the man that took a small business and grew it, and then turned that into a real estate empire. A lot of people would call it an empire. Ron's pretty humble and probably wouldn't, but a lot of people would. If you'd
I
like
wouldn't
to
call
learn
it an empire.
No.
Yeah.
You got like half the Monopoly board covered.
Yeah. I don't know, but I don't own Boardwalk.
Yeah, Boardwalk and Park Place. You don't have those yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cody,
But I don't want
Cody.
them. But for me, I don't want them. I mean, again, I'm turning 73 next month, and I'm comfortable and I'm happy with what I have, and I don't think more is better. And so, but I before you do that, you asked me the other day when we were chatting, when people are working, wherever people are working and putting all their time and energy besides their family life, it's hard to be buying property, inspecting the property, looking at dealing, being active in it. And so you could do it, but it's hard. And then you're taking your mindset away from where your bread and butter, know how to make money, to rather than when you're doing it individually versus going in with a group. And and the other only rule I'll do, because there's plenty of people who are doing what you're doing, who advertise, and I always stay away from the big boys who are sending out, pie in the sky numbers, because it just, I don't believe it. So I don't buy that. So anyway.
I think we should add that to your list. Don't believe in the pie in the sky numbers, because it's a true statement. Ron, I don't remember if you remember this one or not, but one of our early on deals, my wife and I, Jennifer and I, we bought a single family house, and you were the lender on that particular deal. And I remember we structured the note at 14%. And we completed the project, paid you back right on time with all the interest, just like we said that we would. And I remember when you took the check, you kind of had a smile on your face. Do you remember that time?
I don't, but that's,
Well,
you
well,
know, so remind me.
here's a lesson you taught me that day. You said, I asked you, I said, hey, what's the smile for? And you said, well, I told some of my other friends that you were paying this rate, and they said, you might as well kiss that money goodbye. And so I just had that in my mind. And then you said this is the important part. Nate, next time you should just offer 8%. I'll never forget that. That was a lesson. And
That part, I do remember that. I do remember that. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. If you offer, in today's market, and somebody says you could get, 20% every year, and then big money on the back end, everything's risk reward. So, it's I'll use Bitcoin because one of my kids is involved in it, but I don't understand it. And all I know is one day it seems like it's rocketing, and anything that goes up fast is going to come down fast. It's just that simple. And he had a guru friend in the stock market who literally took, I can't remember, it's 50,000 and turned it into 5 million. And then, because in the stock market is different than real estate, it's either greed or fear that motivates. Well, he was greedy, and all of a sudden what went up really fast disappeared. And now he's working on a farm because he lost it all, because he didn't have the fortitude to get out quick enough. And I just don't think you see that with real estate unless you're, the other thing is location, location, location. So if you're in a crappy area, I don't think it's worth doing it. But if I'm repeating myself, but if you're in conservative states in a decent area where there's people working and has a good history, I don't think you're going to lose. I mean, if you do 100 of these, you might on one or two, but you're not going to, statistically, you're going to do better than individually. That's how I think.
great mindset. Hey, you got a couple questions coming in. And first one, Cody, if you're ready to rock, I saw you raise your hand. Just go ahead and unmute yourself, and then we'll take your question. While you're getting positioned, I'm going to read Mark's question out loud. So, Ron, Mark is an investor, really good man. His question is this: do you mind sharing your real estate stock to equity ratio? 50-50, 60-40? What is your ratio?
The real answer, I have no clue, because I don't pay attention to it. But if I actually sat down, I don't own individual stocks per se, but I deal with a couple of the big boys, and they put me into places. Again, I buy and hold. I do not buy and then watch it every day to think, oh, now is the time to sell. So I'll give you, it's probably 50-50, but I'm weaning off of the stocks because, again, I'm turning 73, and if all of a sudden there's a big tank, I don't know if I have time to recover, or do I want to deal with the, um, I don't need the stress. So I it's funny you asked me before about the risk factor with the real estate. I see the stock market is much more risky than the real estate. Personally, that's how I see it.
I'm with you in that boat. I watched when I was a Target employee. This is years ago, 2006, 2007, when the market crashed. I lost about half of my 401k in a matter of months, and then I realized how quick it can come down in the stock market.
The
Mr.
last,
Cody. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ron.
no, I was just going to say the last time the stock market was really tanking, I sent a text to a lot of my friends, and I said, I don't, you know, my last year my stockbroker made me a millionaire, and I said, well, I used to have 2 million. So, so it's bad. So anyway,
Spot
Enron said
on.
it all. Yeah, I see that.
Cody, you ready to rock, man? I saw you unmuted for a second. If you're ready, we can take your question now.
I am sorry. I don't know if my video is working. I'm having some technical challenges, but um, I got a little late. So, Ron, I just have a quick question for you, and because I am just starting to really consider investing in something like this, and I'm going to start at the bottom because my business is, it still requires a lot of cash. So I keep my cash on the side for the business to grow it. And I've always invested in residential deals. My wife and I have flipped a few things, never invested in multifamily, never invested in what Nate's talking about here. I see it everywhere. I see the Cardone blast, I get those emails. Um, so Ron, what was your first deal with Nate's group? It sounds like it might have been the 14%, but where was the first deal where you invested in more of the syndicate thing with Nate? And what did that look like when you were just getting started and just putting dollars at risk?
Well, again, for me, it might be a little different because I knew Nate, and if Nate says it's a good deal, I usually would say rate it from 1 to 10, and he would be honest. And my attitude was if it was 8 or higher, I'd go with it. Uh, you know, I can't remember the name, but it was in Kentucky. Um, and it was Nate, you probably could answer better than I was, but I think it was paying 7 or 8% as you go, but then on the back end you made money. So I'm okay if I'm getting 6, 7 or 8% on a real estate deal, particularly because a lot of it's tax deferred or tax free in essence. And then I like the deals that I've done in the past, um, where all of a sudden they sell it and all of a sudden you're surprised because you get a $50,000 additional check or something like that. So that was mine. I think this is uh, I'm just thinking of you take, I mean, obviously your business is your bread and butter, but if it were me, I would take X amount, whatever that is, and set it aside and forget about it. Honestly, I just forget about it. And it's like if you have money with a stockbroker, unless you're actively involved, you forget about that stuff. You don't pay attention to it. And all of a sudden, you know, you go, oh, what's the value? And you look one day and you're happy or sad. But with Nate and the other people I work with, I get the check either monthly or quarterly, and it's just, again, I'm not working anymore. I've been retired for 10 years, and I'm not touching my nest egg. I'm leaving it for my kids so they could spend it foolishly. And but the other money, I'm living off the real estate, because but it took a little while to build up. So I mean, I'm just looking at your picture. You don't look that old. And so give it time, and all of a sudden it's 5 years later, you got, you know, and then you do a deal, and then you do another deal, and then you do another deal, and then there are times, so some sell, some don't sell, and then you're buying new deals. That's where I'm at this point. I don't know if that answered your question, but
Cody, is that helpful? Anything you want to dive further into?
I can't hear him.
No, he's on mute, so he might be muted right now. And then Mark followed up. He said, thank you and congrats on all your success. But he was saying that him and his wife, this is Mark who asked the question about the ratio. He said, we're gradually moving into the stock market and into more real estate deals with Nate and Home Invest. Well, it sounds like he's following the same path that you've already done, Ron, moving out of the stock market. All right.
Yeah, I'm not saying I don't want to be completely out of it. Again, here's my rule of thumb. I don't put more than 15% of my assets into any one investment. I won't do it in the stock market. I won't do it in the real estate. I mean, I have more than 15%, but I wouldn't put it into one deal, so that if all of a sudden I get a call on a deal and say, sorry, we got a tornado hit, we got flattened, and we forgot to pay our insurance premiums. So, I mean, that's the possible worst case scenario. And I'll be like, okay. I have friends whose parents had $50 million and they lost it all to Madoff. All of it. They were broke.
Bernie Madoff, the biggest Ponzi scheme.
Yeah. And so and it comes down to everything else. People go into greed. So he's promising the moon and they threw every penny at it. And so, don't put more than 15% of what you have, at least my 2 cents. Don't put 15% into any deal. So Nate has a deal and you think, oh my God, this looks great. I'm going to empty everything out and sell my car. Don't do it. Take 15%, because my attitude is you could always survive loss of 15% if it zeroed out. And that's not going to happen, but if it did.
That's very sound advice, Ron. Thank you. And Cody, if you want to come back online and ask any more questions, let us know. Cody's a good man of faith. I believe, if I'm picturing the right person, I don't get to see his video right now, but he's got kids. He's got a daughter that's about 12 years old, and she was really smart. She led the whole group for an exercise. So I'm going to switch gears on us, Ron, and we're going to keep moving down here. And Paige, you tell me if this is where you want me to go, but I believe this is what you were pointing towards. So
Yep.
Oh, perfect. Thank you, Paige. How can you invest? So Ron, let's get some of your take on this too. I know you've done everything from 1031 exchanges. You've used retirement accounts. What are your favorite ways to invest into real estate?
It depends on what money I have where at the time. I don't have a preference. I don't really care if it's IRA or non-IRA. So you mentioned 1031 exchange. I've done 3 or 4 of them. Again, I'm not sure if everybody knows what they are. And
let's define 1031. If I were a 10-year-old boy, how would you define that?
Well, real simple. If you are selling a property and you're making substantial money and you don't love to give it to the government for the taxes, you could put it into what's called a 1031 exchange. Sounds fancy, no big deal. A lawyer draws it up. I happen to have a really good guy in Minneapolis. I think it's $700 or $800 to do it. And you have to go in. There's a few rules. I don't really know them off the top of my head, but there's a few very simple rules. And if you stick with those, you could buy another property of what's called like kind. And you just have to find out if it's eligible for that or not. And then you put the money in there, and then the taxes are deferred. So that, however, depending on how old you are, if it's deferred, like I'm going to leave the places to my kids, they won't have to pay. You tell me if I'm wrong, Nate, but I don't think they have to pay taxes on the growth at all. Am I right?
You are accurate. That as long as you, like, I don't wish this upon you, Ron, but as long as you die, then the tax basis is reset. So they're not inheriting all of your deferred taxes. That's the number one question we get in our office with 1031s. Like, hey, I'm selling a property, I'm making a bunch of money, but when I 1031 it, are my kids going to have to pay tax when I pass the properties to them? And the answer is no under the current tax code. Current tax code says that when you hand over the properties to your kids, the tax basis is reset. So that property you could theoretically never pay tax on.
Right.
Oh,
So
eh,
so that's why I've done it on like I said, 3 or 4 of them. And it's honestly, when it comes down to the detail, I always like to tease and say I'm Forrest Gump's dumber brother. I don't really care to know about it. I don't want to know about it. Again, I have a lawyer that I trust to draw it up and make sure I do it right, and then I do it. It's really a simple thing. Anybody who's thinking it's complicated or worried about it, it's really a piece of cake.
let's talk about some of these other ways. Ron, have you ever used a self-directed IRA or 401k to invest in real estate?
Well, I don't have a 401k because I was, uh, well, I just don't have one. But I have used the self-directed IRA, but usually not. But that's just not for any reason though. I don't see a reason not to.
So I'll just use that to say that anyone, if you've got a 401k or a self-directed IRA, especially if it's not with your current employer, if you've left the employer that you built it up at, you are more than likely eligible to take it with you and invest in real estate. You have to move it to a custodian that does self-directed IRAs or self-directed 401ks. Super simple process. Takes about 3 weeks. It's usually online forms and they can have the money moved. My wife is moving another one right now. And then you can have checkbook control. You can decide what you want to invest in. So a lot of people invest with us using their self-directed retirement account. Um, Endowments is another one. We're working with a school in Southwest Florida. We just had a big, long meeting with them a couple weeks ago about helping them invest some endowment money. So if you're in charge of an endowment and you want to see it grow without stock market risk, that's another way. And then the other one is asset liquidation and repurposing of funds. If you are selling something off, maybe a family business, or we've got one individual, actually a partner in Home Invest. The reason that he's into multifamily real estate is because he's selling a large company and he doesn't want to get nailed with taxes. So there's additional tax benefits that we haven't talked about yet that could help mitigate or even eliminate taxes from his life when he completes that sale. There's a lot of different ways that you can get into these investments, but these are some of the most primary ones. Think
You know,
outside the box on it. Go ahead,
I'll
Ron.
just mention this. So my brother-in-law makes about $10 million a year on, it's all real estate. And he said to me half jokingly, he was a little annoyed last year because he had to pay a little bit of taxes. And otherwise he doesn't pay taxes. And part of it's because he's in Texas, but he knows how to, legitimately and legally work what the government allows you to do. And I mean, I'm certainly not in his economic world, but I pay a hell of a lot more taxes than he does because I don't have that. So I mean, real estate's always been a great place to do it. And one of the things people always, I'm actually laughing because, a lot of people say, I don't want to do real estate now because interest rates are 6% or 7%. Well, when I bought my first house, the interest rates were 17%. Thank you to Jimmy Carter. And so 6% is not bad. Historically, it's not bad. But I will also say this, that Nate, you just have a profound ability to find deals, and that's the one thing I will applaud you about is your ability to just find these things. I mean, they don't just drop in your lap. I'm sure you work, but you find deals, and as you said, right now the real estate's tough. So there are people who are going to be, oh my God, I got to get out of this. And that's where people like you, Nate, jump in and say, okay, I'll buy it from you. And so you get better deals now than you did, a couple of years ago when the stock, when housing was great and you'd put up the house and five people will have a bid in before you even had a chance to go see it. So
Ron, that the last syndication you partnered with us on, was a recent one. It was Barksdale. We got that one. The seller paid 5.7 million for it, and he lost 2 million bucks selling to us. Not that we're the bad guy. He was going to lose it to bank foreclosure, but we bought it for 3.3 million. 3.3 million. So the deal hunting that you're talking about, it's an active thing, like full time. We've got somebody on staff that has been scouring through deals, literally hundreds per month, and then we submit 50 plus LOIs, and it all boils down to usually one deal per month. So it takes some work, but it's a necessary part of the business. You got to get the right deals. I want to just hit a couple more of these here, and I'm gonna, if there's any more questions that anyone has for Ron, this is a limited time opportunity. Ron, I know you don't have to do this, so we're very appreciative of you doing this. You're in a position in life where you've earned time off if you want to take it, but you came here and you're just sharing openly. So if anyone
Well,
wants to,
part of it is if you could see, I went to Ohio State, so I'm wearing my Ohio State sweatshirt, so I'm happy to show it to everybody.
Ohio State, yes.
For those of you on the talk who aren't following sports, they won the national championship in football on Monday night. It was pretty exciting for people who went there. And if anybody's wondering whether I played, I'm 5'7" and 140 pounds. So that answers your question.
You played linebacker.
I played third string water boy.
Third string water boy. Well, I do know this, Ron. You were pretty much a champion tennis player. So we'll take that.
I did play college tennis. So
cool. So if you guys want to learn from Ron, now's your last chance. Last minute questions we'll throw in. I'm going to hit just a couple more ways that people can invest because I promised this and I don't want to disappoint anybody. So outside of what Ron and I have talked about today. So far we've talked about single family houses, duplexes, doing that yourself. That's one way to get into real estate. It's a lot more hands-on. The second way that Ron is talking about is real estate syndications. Those are those group deals. That's where somebody else brings the deal forward and then you passively invest in it. You let the group manage all the headaches that come along with it. Another version of that is a REIT. So number one on the list, a REIT. A REIT is just a bigger version. These are usually publicly traded real estate companies. They gather money from pension funds and public in general, can buy shares, and then they go out and buy big buildings and they manage it. The one thing with REITs are great, but just know that they have more layers of management. So oftentimes some of the returns are eaten up in administrative costs. So REITs can be great though. Next one is private equity real estate funds. You've got groups out there like Blackstone that run private funds. You can get in on deals like that as long as you're an accredited investor. And then there's a new fad called crowdfunding. This is basically fractionalized. People that put in $5 each can get into real estate deals through crowdfunding platforms. There's a lot of platforms out there like that. We as a company, we've actually explored it. The only reason we haven't pulled the trigger is because the administrative costs, the legal costs, the compliance costs is similar to running a publicly traded company. And we found that it eats away a lot of the profit paying attorneys and CPAs. And so thus far, we have not launched a crowdfunding platform. We've instead stuck with accredited investors only, and therefore we're able to divide the returns with our investors instead of attorneys. Rental property partnerships. This is a little bit more like Ron was talking about earlier. This is where you might buy a single duplex or a single family home, and maybe you partner with someone else. That a lot of people do that. Ron, have you ever done tax liens or bought deeds or anything like that?
No.
No. So this is another interesting angle. I bought some of these before. I bought mortgage notes. I bought some tax liens. This is basically buying the debt on the property, not the actual real estate, but you buy the debt in hopes that if the borrower or the owner of the property defaults, you can take the asset. So that's another way to do it. Debt investments, 1031 exchanges. We've talked about that. So I'll move forward on it. All right. Did I miss any? Paige, if I'm supposed to do more, you tell me. Otherwise,
no, you did a great job. I think I would just say, Rod, when you came in, you were like, this sounds hard. There's 10 ways to do it. But is it hard to get it off the books? Like if you're starting, didn't you mention you like lawyers and it'll help you, right?
Well, yeah, and don't be afraid of lawyers. I mean, there are some that are good, honest people who do a good job. But again, when I started, is I really did a lot of it through Nate and just I had a lot of confidence and trust in Nate, and I mean I bought a bunch of properties in Milwaukee, and I never saw one of them. I didn't see any of them. I mean, Nate found them, showed me numbers, showed me pictures, and a lot of times I would say, Nate, would you buy it? And he goes, yeah, I'd buy it. And other times you say, well, this one's not the best, but it's something to consider. But um, you got to be able to trust somebody. And for me, it's been, like I said, all the deals but two have been great. So I mean, you tell me if you pick 40 stocks, you're going to hit 38 out of 40. I don't think that's going to happen unless you're Bernie Madoff.
Ah, that's a bad word. If you guys don't know the name Bernie Madoff that Ron's joking about in reference, he ran a huge Ponzi scheme, and he gave every fund manager in the industry a black eye because he was taking money and milking people for years and years, and got away with it all the way until the end. I don't know, 10 years ago or so, the whole thing fell apart. And then he went to jail and he died in jail. So Ron, I want to do this. Huge thank you to you. Those of you that are looking for an investment opportunity, hang on for one more minute and I'll show it. But before I do that, please, can you just give Ron some love in the chat? Ron took time out of his day. He doesn't have to do this. He could be hanging out with grandkids or at the gym, on the machine, watching his stock market account go up and down. But instead, he's here with us. So thank you, Ron. Ron, you're getting a lot of love in the chat. You're getting love from Mark, from Ralph, from Chris. Thank you. Thank you. And
I'll just put this out there, Nate.
Yeah.
If anyone has questions, but they would like to ask me personally, you could give them my cell phone. And more than likely, all I ask is text me first, say you were on the call with Nate and tell me the number, because otherwise I don't answer phones numbers that I don't recognize. But if you leave me a voicemail, I will call you back.
Wow. That's very generous. Ron, I should warn you first, we get 100+ inquiries per week, leads coming through our system. So, but here's what we'll do to make sure that it's a serious call. Can we put the link in the chat for our team? Put the link in the chat. Okay, so here's the way it'll work, guys. If you guys want to take Ron up on that was a huge offer, Ron. If you guys want to take Ron up on that offer and have a personal chat with him, click the link in the chat, jump on the phone with our team. Let us know that you're a real human being. Let us know that you have interest in investing, and then we'll get you Ron's cell phone number. You can call Ron. And Ron, thank you. I really appreciate that, man.
I will not take any calls from Nigeria telling me how I inherited $50 million. So those calls, please don't call.
Okay, we'll screen those out for you. So you guys click the link in the chat. That link, what it does is it goes to one of our advisors. Advisors are partners. They invest money just like you and I, just like Ron. These are highly skilled people. They're intelligent. We don't have salespeople on our team that are pushing people into doing something they don't want to do. Jump on the phone with us. And if you show us that you do want to talk with Ron, then yeah, we'll connect you with Ron and get you over there. But that's the team on the screen right there. Sue, Doug, Dan. Ron, you've worked with Sue before, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And
okay.
And
Cool.
Sue told me for the month of February I could leave Minnesota and come live in her place in Arizona for a month. That was very nice, Sue. She actually.
You're welcome anytime, Ron. It's not fancy though. It's not going to be like your house.
Well, we just had 3 days where it never reached zero. In fact, I always like to tell people it was so cold here, I actually saw a lawyer with his hands in his own pockets.
Well, it's been cold here. It was only 25 this morning and only 59 right now.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you all. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you, Ron. And guys, we'll wrap it up there. If you guys want more of dry, real, raw Ron Mash humor, then use the link, book a call, and we'll get you connected. Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Have a good day.
Bye.